Hey guys, welcome to another Mastering Positional Techniques, Mastering Positional Play lesson. It's lesson number 13 and I'll continue doing them because there are a lot of things that I'm not diving deep into these positions and deep into explaining it, but I think some of the examples really demonstrate certain techniques, how you can improve your strategical understanding, and today we're going to be covering bishops. Speed demos in the diagonals. Once again, I'm taking this example from the book called How to Reassess Your Chess by Jeremy Silman. I always suggest this book on stream. I'm of course not taking all examples, I'm just kind of selecting all these positions and then try to show you kind of the best examples. And this first one, the active bishop, you have the active bishop on c4. And black have not so active bishop on e7, and guess what black played? They played c5, and just for the purpose of showing you the active versus non-active bishop, this bishop is insanely good on this long diagonal, while this bishop on e7 is just awful, and something like d takes e5 would give white a very good edge. Because after knight e5, d takes e5, queen e2, we have an extremely active bishop on the c4 g8 diagonal, while this bishop is kind of stuck on the e7 square, pointing towards c5. There is e5 which blocks. We also have this active bishop which potentially goes to e3 or g5. But let's say white decide to go for something else, let's say d5. They block their own bishop. Yes, this one is terrible, but of course you never really want to play d5. But the problem is some people still would play this move just to thinking that they will take more space, but you still gotta keep your bishops active on the board. Let's get to the next example. Ruler of the b1 h7 diagonal. This example is just just some fairy tale for white. They control every single square on this b1 and h7 diagonal. b1 square, c2, d3, e4, f5, g6, h7, and of course they'll win the game because the pawn is now promoted and checkmate is inevitable. d7, d8, there's absolutely nothing black can do. It is a win, but yes, sometimes there are examples where those pawn chain, let's say d4, f5, f6, g7, might get very weak squares on this long diagonal, and the same would apply, let's say, with f7, e6, d5, c4, b3, a2, or c2, d3, e4, f5, g6, h7 pawn, when white have the opposite color bishop on the dark square. But let's take a look at the next position. The example of Catapult. This position reminds me of some Sicilians where it could be just even it definitely reminds of some Sicilian vibes, with specifically c3 Sicilian on the second move. Here, white have all the white squares to their advantage, and they create a catapult of queen and bishop attacking the light square on h7. f5, e takes f6, rook f6, rook goes to e1. This threat is not going anywhere. There is nothing that black can do. Let's say knight a5, queen h7, rook f5, we take on e6, knight a5, queen h7, king f7, bishop g5. Now h takes g5, just knight g5, and then take on e6, queen g8, bishop f6, bishop h7, and now white are up in exchange to trade this bishop off the board, and the position is completely winning. And now we'll take a look at the examples of opposite colored bishops. Okay, I know this is a ridiculous position, bishops of opposite colors. Here, king goes to e6, and despite white having 3 extra bishops on the board, there is still no way to win. So, bishop d1, king f7, and now if bishop c2 is played, white go h5, and they actually manage to break through. But, of course, they don't have to do it. Bishop h5, bishop e5, and now this king goes back and forth. If this king tries to go to d5, we'll eventually block on c6, so this pawn will always be protected on g6 with bishop and h5. There is no way to make any progress despite this white side having so many bishops. That's impossible to win. It has a draw. Now let's take a look at the next example of opposite colored bishops. This position has kind of the same dynamics as we saw in the previous example, but here it's white to play and they can actually break through. So first black play bishop f5, and unfortunately they are losing. If bishop was on a2, then there is no way to break through, because this bishop goes b3, c4, d5, c4, b4, b3, f2, no way to break through. But now d5, and the problem is that after e takes d5, there's e6, and white managed to break through, bishop f4, and if king d5 was played, then there's king d7, and now c6, king e8, we take the pawn and win the game. And now I also want to show you some, again, fun example where bishop is dominated, as we saw with the knights in the previous lesson. Let's go. The tall pawn. And we saw how it can happen with the knight. In the previous lesson, the knight was on h1 with the same pawn structure. In the following examples, there is bishop. And sometimes, you know, I play chess on streams, and even against stronger players, sometimes it can happen to anyone. The bishop gets locked, and it becomes like a whole pawn. Let's say you have the structure d5, c6, and then you also have bishop on b7. And let's say the structure d4, c5 for white, and d5, c6 for black. And then you got a very stupid bishop on b7, which is pointing towards this pawn chain. In the following example, this pawn is called so-called tall pawn. This is a bishop, but it is a pawn in reality. And here, black are breaking through. They go c3, b takes c3, king c4. And now we're trying to use our passer to get the pawn a2, a1, then king takes, and king slowly walks all the way to g1, takes the pawn, king g2, the pawn on f2 will be taken, then king g2, f2, f1, black promote and win the game. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick lesson, and the next one will cover bishop versus knight positions. That should be fun to watch. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.